I've always found the end of every Mass rather intriguing, that no sooner have we received the very body and blood of our blessed Lord in Holy Communion, then Mass seems to sort of end rather abruptly. There is the concluding prayer of the Mass, and then the final blessing. Nothing else. In some ways, putting the notices into that bit of the Mass sort of interrupts the flow of this part of the rite. And as I've got older, I've begun to appreciate more and more this part of the Mass. The reality is that this ending of Mass, rather interestingly enough, actually becomes the beginning of Mass. While the Eucharistic celebration does indeed finish, each and every one of us is sent out on a common mission. Each of us is commissioned to go forth. The Mass is ended. Go and announce the gospel of the Lord. Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. The final demarcation of the Mass becomes the opening of our call to mission in the world. That what we have celebrated as a family of faith, as a communion together, we live out and we make real the presence of Jesus in the world. The matter of how we make this reality in our lives depends upon our particular calling, our particular vocation, upon who we are, what God has called us to be, and the place in the world where He has placed us at that moment to do a special task. As Cardinal Newman says, to do a task for which he's given to no other. If we look at the gospel today makes much more sense when we put it into context. Jesus has just begun his public ministry. He has just stood up to read in his local synagogue. And if you remember the scene, he is given the scroll and he reads from the prophet Isaiah, "The Spirit of the Lord has been given to me, because the Lord has anointed me." And so the beginning of today's gospel and the comment at the start of that gospel is in reference to that moment, to this whole scene in its entirety, that no prophet is ever accepted in his own country. It's almost like the people in the synagogue who are listening to him are blinded by familiarity. They don't get who he is fundamentally, because for them, they know him so well. He is merely the son of a carpenter. What else would he know? Jesus shows us that such spiritual blindness shouldn't put us off our call to mission, our call to go and make disciples. I wondered if you have ever experienced something similar in your own lives, of people not taking your ministry seriously, people failing to see beyond what is so familiar to them. It's like the old saying, isn't it? I was quoting it the other day, we can't evangelize our families. If we're not careful, this can become a real blockage, a hamper, and hamper our ministry within the community. In our gospel this evening, Jesus offers us certain characters by name as examples to us of people who continue to reach out, even despite the challenges they faced, of not allowing the rejection of their ministry to hamper their own prophetic and apostolic endeavors. Elijah and Elisha themselves are named personally. They are prophetic voices of the Old Testament. This prophetic voice has become foundational for us as we take up our own apostolic ministry to the peripheries of our world. I'm not sure if you've seen on the news today or on the internet, Pope Francis today celebrates his 10th anniversary as Pope. Can you believe it? Pope Francis's ministry to the world over those last 10 years have challenged all of us. He has shown us that the Word of God continually challenges those who believe in him, continually challenges those for whom he has sent to go forth in new ways, challenging us to go forth to the periphery pointers of our community. It did for the prophets of the Old Testament. The challenges arose for Jesus himself, and such challenges will arise for us too in our own ministry. Pope Francis's example has highlighted to us that we as Christians and as a community of faith have a duty to discern the pathways that the Lord has pointed out to us, even if it means going out of our comfort zones, out of those places which are so familiar to us. And I know that personally, this for me has been part of my Lenten journey this year so far, of seeking in my own life what going forth actually means for me and for my vocation in the world. Isn't it true that we begin Lent with the best of ideas, knowing where we're going, and it always ends up not for it to be what we expect it to be? Our gospel this evening and this part of our Lenten journey invite us to assess the quality of our going, the quality of our going forth, of our mission, to discern the ways in which we do exercise our divinely instituted mission in the world, those apostolic vocation. Let us be confident that God has called us to be apostles of his word. May we continue to make ourselves vulnerable in his presence and listen with an open heart to his promptings to us, to discovering new and exciting ways of bringing people to relationship with the living and risen Lord.